Charles Leclerc was absolutely flying through the first sector of Suzuka during his final Q3 lap. Purple Sector 1, Purple Sector 2. Everything pointed toward a potential pole position at one of the most legendary circuits on the Formula One calendar. Through the corners, Leclerc looked unstoppable, carrying more speed than anyone else on track. Then everything changed at Spoon Curve. As he exited the corner, the Ferrari suddenly snapped into oversteer. It was only a small moment, the kind of correction elite drivers deal with all the time. But what happened next exposed one of the biggest hidden problems with Formula One's new 2026 regulations. Flat on the throttle, doing absolutely nothing wrong, the car simply slowed down. On the long run toward the final chicane, one of the fastest and most exhilarating sections of the Suzuka lap, the Ferrari visibly lost speed. By the time Leclerc crossed the line, the lap that once looked like pole position had turned into fourth place. The gap, 0.6 of a second, 0.627 behind the pole time set by Kimi Antonelli. When Leclerc returned to the Ferrari garage, he didn't hold back on the team radio. "I honestly cannot stand these new rules for qualifying. It's a joke. I go faster in the corners, I get on the throttle earlier, and I lose everything on the straight." This wasn't just a frustrated driver reacting emotionally after a disappointing lap. This was one of the most precise and analytical qualifiers in modern Formula One, explaining in real time what many drivers believe is fundamentally broken about the new regulations. To understand why Leclerc was so angry, you have to look closely at what happened at Spoon Curve. The 2026 power units are designed with a 50/50 balance between internal combustion power and electrical energy. That means energy deployment and recovery play a far bigger role in lap performance than ever before. When Leclerc had that small snap of oversteer at Spoon, the system registered an unexpected spike in energy usage. The power unit reacted automatically, adjusting the energy balance. The result? Instead of deploying energy on the long straight toward the final chicane, the car began recharging. So while Leclerc had the throttle pinned and was pushing at maximum attack, the Ferrari was actually recovering energy rather than delivering it. The car slowed down not because of driver error, but because the system was doing exactly what it had been programmed to do. After the session, Leclerc explained the frustration in detail. In Q3, that's where you want to go out and try things you've never tried before. Take risks you've never taken before. That's always been the reward of qualifying. But according to him, that philosophy no longer works under the 2026 rules. Now it's not possible anymore. Every time you go a little bit over the limit, every time the car has a small snap, it costs energy. And then you pay the price later. Then he said something that should make Formula One officials pay very close attention. At the moment, consistency is rewarded more than bravery. And that's a shame. It makes qualifying less challenging. That one phrase says everything. Less challenging. At Suzuka, a circuit many drivers consider the ultimate qualifying challenge in motorsport history. This is the track where legends have created iconic laps, where drivers push right to the edge through the S's, the Degners, and the terrifying commitment of 130R. Even Ayrton Senna once described Suzuka as a place where achieving the perfect lap felt like a spiritual experience. And now Leclerc, one of the most naturally gifted qualifiers of his generation, is saying that qualifying is no longer about raw bravery. Instead, it's about perfectly managing energy systems. When asked further about it, Leclerc didn't hide his frustration. This might sound arrogant, but going into Q3 doesn't feel as exciting anymore. We want to be at the limit of these cars. But every time you touch that limit, not only do you pay with a small mistake, you pay 3 times the price on the straights. This wasn't the first time Leclerc raised concerns during the Suzuka weekend either. On Thursday, When the FIA announced a change to the energy management system, he acknowledged the adjustment but made it clear it wouldn't solve the real problem. I don't think it will be a game changer for qualifying. There are still changes needed so we can push flat out again. He even pointed back to the opening race of the season in Melbourne, where the same issue appeared. It's no longer possible to push flat out in qualifying because you have to manage energy. And for me, that's frustrating because qualifying is usually where I can extract the most. Now, to be clear, this wasn't a disaster session for Ferrari. Leclerc was still fastest in Sector 1 on his final lap. Without the spoon moment and the energy consequences that followed, he likely had the pace to fight for pole. Instead, he lines up 4th on the grid, just ahead of Lando Norris in 5th and his own teammate Lewis Hamilton in 6th. At Suzuka, that starting position is still extremely valuable. Overtaking here is notoriously difficult, and Ferrari have shown exceptional race starts throughout the season. So 4th place still gives Leclerc a real opportunity on Sunday. But the gap to pole tells another story. Antonelli secured his 2nd consecutive pole position with a stunning lap of 1:28.778, finishing 0.3 clear of his teammate George Russell. Leclerc admitted the gap reflects the current reality. We're in an okay place, but we're not here just to fight for podiums. We want to win races, and right now that looks very difficult because Mercedes are operating at a very high level. He even warned the performance difference might be larger than it appears. I don't think it's as close as people think. With these cars, if you're even slightly suboptimal, you lose a huge amount of lap time. In other words, Ferrari might actually be closer to Mercedes in raw pace than the results suggest. But under these regulations, producing the perfect lap has become incredibly complicated. Because perfection now isn't about bravery. It's about energy management. And Ferrari aren't the only team emerging as a threat either. McLaren showed impressive speed in qualifying. Oscar Piastri secured 3rd on the grid, while Norris followed closely behind in 5th. After their disastrous double retirement in China, McLaren appear to have made serious progress at Suzuka. Leclerc wasn't surprised. I expected them to make this kind of step. They're a very strong team. It's not surprising to see them back where they should be. Looking ahead to Sunday, Leclerc knows exactly what he needs to do. Ferrari's starts have been one of their biggest strengths this season. And at Suzuka, the run to turn 1 often determines the order for long stretches of the race. His target is simple: at least gain 1 position. If we can gain 2 or 3, even better. Then hopefully we can keep the Mercedes behind. But he immediately followed that with a brutally honest assessment. I doubt that will be possible. That sentence perfectly sums up the situation. It's not frustration. It's not surrender. It's simply the clear evaluation of a driver who understands exactly where his car stands compared to the one sitting on pole position. Leclerc wants to win, but he also knows the gap is real. And perhaps most frustrating of all, the qualifying result was partly shaped by regulations that penalize exactly the type of driving that made him one of the most spectacular qualifiers in Formula 1. The FIA has already scheduled deeper technical discussions ahead of the Miami Grand Prix. And after everything Leclerc said this weekend at Suzuka, his voice will almost certainly be central to those conversations. Because the bigger question now is unavoidable. Have the 2026 regulations fundamentally changed what qualifying means in Formula 1? Or are drivers simply facing a new challenge they will eventually learn to master? And for Ferrari, another question remains. Can their strong race starts give Leclerc the chance to fight for the podium on Sunday, despite Mercedes' clear pace advantage? And if these energy issues are already creating frustration at Suzuka, one of the most balanced circuits in the world, what will happen later in the season at power-sensitive tracks like Monza? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to like the video and subscribe for more Formula One analysis. I'll see you in the next one.